Back here in the United States, the largest labor union of federal employees is breaking with Democrats and pushing for an immediate deal to end this government shutdown. Thousands of federal workers will not get their scheduled paychecks this week. The shutdown now may have an even bigger impact starting this Saturday. Caitlin Huey-Burns has that part of the story.
Aaron Annis is one of more than 40 million Americans who rely on federal food assistance.
We're just people that just need to eat and have some security in our lives. That's what it's about.
But due to the government shutdown, that help may soon run out. The USDA has declared that there will be no benefits issued beginning this Saturday, November 1st. For Annis, it's a daunting deadline. The Pennsylvania native never thought she'd need SNAP benefits, but 3 bouts of cancer and a double knee replacement left her unable to work.
Having those resources, what does it mean for your life?
Everything. It means everything to me.
What exactly do you think you're going to need to do?
I'll have to ask my children to help me.
And what is...
That's an awful feeling.
How so?
For them to have to help me.
Even in...
It's a little tough to think about sometimes.
She'll also turn to her local food pantry. Shyla Ulrich is CEO of the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank and is expecting demand to increase.
People are scared. It's a moment where people don't know and understand what's about to happen, whether or not they'll get those benefits should the government open back up or when.
And while lawmakers continue to point fingers,
the best way for SNAP benefits to be paid on time is for the Democrats to end their shutdown.
They shut the government down, then they left town, and now they're nowhere to be found.
Annis says she just wants politicians to talk to each other and find a solution.
This should not be a political issue. This should be a human privilege to be fed.
Now, the USDA announced that it cannot legally tap into a contingency fund to help pay for SNAP benefits, saying that that's reserved for natural disasters. But there is a Republican proposal here in the Senate to pay for those benefits. But Nate, it's unclear whether or when that would get a vote.
Yeah, and we will stay tuned. Caitlin, thank you.
Well, as the U.S. government shutdown drags on, think about this. Maybe even picture the people in your own neighborhood. 1 in 8 Americans count on federal food assistance. Now, come November 1, that all goes away if Congress can't get the government up and running again. To Louisiana now, where the worry is real. And CBS News' Katie Weiss. Katie, a large portion of the people that you talk to there in Louisiana rely on that food assistance. What are they saying?
Absolutely. About 800,000 people in the state of Louisiana rely on SNAP benefits or food stamps, and that benefit may run out come November 1st. However, Louisiana, like Virginia, has taken a rare step to issue a state of emergency to be able to keep those funds moving forward. And that's something that has some people relieved, but feeling still very skeptical as millions of Americans across the country today are gearing up for this November 1st deadline when SNAP benefits are expected to run out. Food banks here in New Orleans have been slammed over the last few days, I'm told. In fact, they were already stretched pretty thin with many federal layoffs and budget cuts to the USDA SNAP benefit program. So food banks were already having a tough time. But then on top of that, there were, people who are now trying to stock up in expectation for potentially losing their benefits at the end of the week. I spoke with one man who just graduated nursing school. He just passed his nursing test, so he got his licensure. He's still looking for jobs and has been on food stamps throughout his nursing school program to feed his 2 twin daughters who are 11 years old. He told me that he came to the food bank just to make sure that he has enough food to put on the table for them next week. Take a listen to what he had to say as well as a food bank distributor.
The insecurity of next month. I don't know if I'm going to have food stamps, or I may have it or I may not. But I know for one thing, my kids have to eat. So a good parent does whatever it takes to provide for their kids.
It will bring more crime because people are going to feel like I have to get it how I get it.
And Cheryl, who you just heard there, who has worked at a local food bank here in New Orleans for the last 7 years, really just wants politicians on both sides of the aisle in Washington, D.C. to understand that people's lives will be hanging in the balance as they debate over the budget come November 1st.
So sobering to hear Irel talk about how my kids have to eat first. They're literally prioritizing their kids over their own mouths. We're also following that some states, including where you are in Louisiana, vowed to continue dispersing these benefits even without federal aid. But how does that work?
Exactly. So Louisiana and Virginia are at least 2 states so far that have taken this move to issue a state of emergency to keep that money flowing, but it can only go through the end of November. After that, the states can't do anything else. They can't intervene. So that does create a pretty hard deadline. But in the meantime, the federal government has said that it may not pay back these states that do take this action. So some other states across the U.S., including Arkansas, have already said, no, we're not going to take that action. Things will run out come November 1st. So it's important, if you do rely on these SNAP benefits, to make sure to look up to see what actions your state may be taking and try to do what you can to prepare in the meantime.
Katie, we see that video of the Louisiana okra. Our hope is that people can stay fed there where you are and all across the country. Thank you so much for your reporting, as always, from that region of our country.
I'm Omar Villafranca at the Central Texas Food Bank in Austin, where more than 1.5 million pounds of produce and pantry items are shipped out each week to some of the most food insecure parts of the state. Demand has spiked 35% since the federal government shutdown began. 1 in 8 Americans depends on SNAP benefits, federal funds that help low-income individuals and families buy food. There are a dozen states where more than 14% of the population receive assistance. Because of the shutdown, those benefits are set to end this weekend. Today, the crowd at the Community Table Food Bank in Arvada, Colorado was so big it had to temporarily close. But not before Danielle Brand was able to get some essentials.
Oranges. The line started at 9 o'clock this morning, and I don't remember ever seeing it being this busy. I mean, they're turning people away.
The Armed Services YMCA food pantry near Fort Hood helps junior enlisted soldiers and their families put meals on the table. Haley Rodriguez, a soldier's wife, had a few words for lawmakers in Washington.
If you're willing to sacrifice your paycheck to help us out and see what it's like to struggle, because it's not fair to us to watch you still get paid. You're not struggling. You're not worried about groceries.
Back here at the Central Texas Food Bank, these trucks behind me will be packed and on the road as they go to set up more than 50 mobile pantries across Central Texas. They're also expanding their hours to get ready to meet the demand when SNAP benefits are expected to run out this weekend.
Okay, many thanks. Omar Villafranca.
This weekend, more than 42 million Americans across the country who rely on the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, will not get their monthly benefit as the shutdown continues. And we wanted to take a closer look at who relies on this aid and where the effects of funding running out will be felt the most. So about 12% of U.S. residents pay for groceries using their SNAP benefits each month. That's according to the Agriculture Department. And that breaks down to about 42 million Americans, or 22 million households. Of those households, 79% had a member who is a child, elderly, or disabled, and almost 3/4 had a gross monthly income at or below 100% of the poverty level. Every state has at least some percentage of its population receiving SNAP. The highest rates are in states including New Mexico, Oregon, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. In New Mexico, which has the largest percentage of residents receiving SNAP benefits in the U.S., an average of 60,000 people, including 25,000 children, each year between 2015 and 2019 were lifted above the poverty line because of SNAP. Now, just before the suspension was set to take effect, 25 states and Washington, D.C. sued the Trump administration, claiming the pause is unlawful. The state's attorneys general argue there is a $5 billion contingency fund that can be used to continue providing benefits through November. The USDA has said those contingency funds can't be used to cover, quote, regular benefits and should be reserved for people impacted by natural disasters. Let's bring in Diane Yentel. She is the CEO of the National Council of Nonprofits. Thank you for being here with us. Your organization, along with local governments, nonprofits, and businesses, filed its own lawsuit today to prevent SNAP benefits from running out Saturday. What's your argument and your message to lawmakers?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So we filed legislation today because without court intervention, on Saturday, 42 million people, these are seniors, children, working families, will no longer have access to vital food assistance to feed their families. And while local nonprofits are literally in the business of stepping up to fill gaps and meet community needs when no one else can or will, nonprofits can't possibly meet the tremendous new need that'll be created when 42 million people lose access to basic food security. And it's important to understand that this action by the administration to shut down SNAP food assistance doesn't have to happen. There are adequate contingency funds to pay for the program, even during a shutdown. But the administration is refusing to use those funds. So we're urging the court to intervene and require them to.
And so my next question for you was going to be, how long can the help last from organizations like yours that fill in the gaps? But what I'm hearing you say is that the help that you guys can provide isn't even enough for those 42 million Americans.
No, absolutely. I mean, to be clear, no one, no person, no organization, no state can fill the gap of a multi-billion-dollar federal program other than the federal government. That's literally the federal government's job. But certainly nonprofit organizations, food banks, food pantries will do their very best to meet all of the need that they can. But nonprofit organizations, even before these 42 million people need additional food assistance, nonprofits, food banks were struggling to meet already increasing demand. So food banks, food pantries, they've had funding cut. They've had federal contracts cut throughout the year. They have fewer resources. At the same time, demand for their services has increased because grocery prices have increased. So more families are relying on food banks to put food on their tables. And since the government shut down, we've seen furloughed federal workers, members of the military who aren't being paid. They're going to food banks to get assistance. And it's more than most food banks can handle. They're having to turn people away, or they're having to ration assistance so that everybody gets something. And now with an additional 42 million people losing federal assistance, these local food banks can't, they'll be pushed past the breaking point. They can't possibly meet this tremendous increased need. So the federal government needs to reverse course and ensure that the SNAP program continues to be funded and those 42 million Americans continue to have healthy food on their tables for their kids and their families.
All right, Diane Yantel, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.
We reached out to the U.S. Department of Agriculture about the National Council of Nonprofits lawsuit. A spokesperson said, quote, "We are approaching an inflection point for Senate Democrats. Continue to hold out for their far left wing of the party or reopen the government so mothers, babies, and the most vulnerable among us can receive timely WIC and SNAP allotments."
Let's talk about the other impact hitting this weekend, the end of federal food assistance known as SNAP. That comes to an end tomorrow, and that means our CBS teams across the country and your communities are showing people stepping up to help people get a meal. Here's a look at the reporting from Boston to Denver, and starting with our teams at CBS News Los Angeles.
In Northridge, a packed food bank could be a warning sign of what's to come. Because of the government shutdown on Saturday, billions of dollars in SNAP funding will be cut off, which means there will be no money for programs like CalFresh, which helps people on low and fixed incomes buy groceries.
Last week it started. Our lines are, I don't know if you saw when you came in, they're wrapped around the mall. You know, so people are afraid. They're asking for more food that they can have to stack up. Thank you.
Southern California food banks like Christie's Foundation are expecting a tidal wave of demand when EBT cards go unrefilled.
It's a lifesaver for people, you know, because a lot of people don't have the funds. Everything in the grocery store is so expensive.
Look at the quality. All across the Commonwealth, agencies are scrambling to come up with solutions and support for Massachusetts neighbors whose SNAP benefits will end Saturday amid the ongoing government shutdown.
We're hearing that families are already gearing up and asking and coming to pantries, anywhere from 100 to 300 more folks showing up seeking food assistance. We are getting a lot of calls from individuals uncertain where to go.
The Greater Boston Food Bank is shipping out 75 additional pallets of food a day to food pantries across Eastern Mass. More than 1 million Massachusetts residents and 42 million people nationwide use SNAP benefits to feed themselves and their families. And the ripple effects could be staggering.
Quite frankly, I just realized it, I think last night, when I was like, okay, how are we going to make an impact? How are we going to make a difference? How are we going to get our customers through it? And then I realized, whoa, that's about 25% of our business.
The Rehoboth Butcher Shop does about $40,000 in EBT sales every month, which is the same amount they spend on payroll.
Despite the cuts, Chartley's Country Store remains committed to keeping their staff employed and their customers fed. They know they'll need their neighbors' help to do so.
All that I can ask for is just support your local business. There's a lot of challenges in the world right now with beef, getting beef, the price of beef, everything else. We have probably the greatest beef you can get. We have plenty of it, and we're here to help you. We just need support from everybody else.
66-year-old Francesca Mays arrives home in a taxi. It's hard to get out. Then a chore to climb the stairs to the home her mother left her in Thornton. Inside, she pulls out an inhaler to help her breathe.
Yes.
There is a long list of medical problems, including non-alcoholic liver disease. Things are difficult. She needs help with many tasks and has other troubles.
Some mental health issues, which I was born with.
Francesca worries about what will happen without SNAP benefits.
I think it's absolutely horrific what they're doing. People with disabilities, older Coloradoans, those are the people they're hitting.
What are you going to do?
I have no clue yet. I have absolutely no clue.
Her Social Security disability payments that she lives on are about $800 a month.
Use the money that I live on daily to buy my food. And so I'm going to come up short somewhere.
Julie Riskin with the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition is concerned about people like Francesca.
Extremely worried. This is very, very scary because it's not just this. We are looking at Medicaid cuts.
She worries about those disabled and those with cognitive issues, sometimes one missed payment away from becoming homeless.
If you've paid attention, you'll see more and more people out there with visible disabilities. You'll see a lot of walkers and wheelchairs, certainly a lot of people with hidden disabilities, chronic illnesses. People fall off and they fall through the cracks.
And that could happen, you believe?
Absolutely.
Francesca is now trying to make plans for Saturday and beyond. How are you going to get food, do you know?
Beg. Go to free things where there's going to be a dinner. That's about it.
One thing that they are already saying here at the Greater Chicago Food Depository is that they are already seeing an increased demand at their partner pantries all across the Cook County area. While some have jumped from 300 people a week, others have jumped to about 400 a week. And while they say the governor's help is help that they really need, they say it really doesn't impact much, especially if SNAP benefits lapse in the long term as we continue to move forward with all of this. Now, $20 million from Governor J.B. Pritzker will help food banks like the Greater Chicago Food Depository distribute more meals across Cook County. Across 9 million residents are SNAP participants. 900,000 of them are right here in the Cook County area. And with the growing demand, the depository says they need your help.
Need more funds right now to buy more food. Our pantries need help with serving the influx of guests that we are expecting. And also we need everybody to let our elected leaders know that SNAP is not negotiable.
Now, let's talk about some ways that they are helping. One of the first ways is that they are now increasing 6 distribution locations, their high demand locations through November. And then there are things like this that are also taking place. Take a look. This is a room of volunteers who have showed up this morning. They are going to be packing food boxes that will then be distributed to their partner pantries throughout the Cook County area. Right now, they are going through their training and all the things that they need to know. And at 9:45, we are going to take you into the warehouse where they will all be on the line building and packing those boxes. One thing that they add here at the Greater Chicago Food Depository is if those SNAP benefits are not renewed, they can continue to see that increased demand as we move into the holiday season. So really, that's where they are calling on volunteers, and they also need money so that they can continue to buy more food. We have a lot more coming up later this hour. We'll see you then. For now, we're live at the Greater Chicago Food Depository. I'm Darius Johnson.
2 federal judges have ruled the government must continue to fund SNAP. The federal food assistance program was set to be frozen tomorrow as the government shutdown stretches into November. But more than 24 Democratic-led states sued the Trump administration over suspending the benefits. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson joins us now to discuss. So, Jessica, these judges say the federal government needs to use contingency funds to keep SNAP up and running. Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. There was a question as to whether or not the federal government was mandated based on the terms of the statute to continue to provide these SNAP benefits, even though we are in a government shutdown and no new budget has been passed. We now have 2 different district court judges looking at the statutes and saying that they believe the fact that there are contingency funds there and looking at, again, the language of the statute indicates that the federal government must provide at least partial funding for these programs. We should remind everybody that these are temporary restraining orders, meaning this is not a final ruling on the merit. Both judges are looking at who's likely to succeed, where there will be an irreparable risk of harm if you do or don't grant this emergency relief. And what we're seeing is in one case, the judge is saying, federal government, I think you need to pay, let me know by Monday. In another case, a judge is saying something very similar, which is you need to pay, essentially tell me by Monday that you did, but both of them globally reaching the same conclusion.
And so what do we expect to happen in the next few days?
Appeals. And the question is whether or not these decisions will be put on pause while these cases are appealed. Obviously, we're talking about a situation where people may not be able to access these benefits. So when you're thinking about why do you typically grant emergency relief, one of the things you look at is who could be harmed, again, by granting or not granting the relief. I think that that will weigh heavily in favor of trying to get some money to people who, again, would otherwise be denied the benefits while these cases are appealed, but it's not a guarantee.
So if one of those 42 million Americans who would be impacted is watching this now, how would you say these rulings will affect whether or not they can get those benefits tomorrow or Sunday or Monday or the next day after that?
So I would say great question. These trial court rulings indicate that the 1 in 8 Americans who rely on these benefits should be able to get at least partial benefits. Having said that, we know these rulings will be appealed. So what we need to look at in the next hours is whether these temporary restraining orders, or in one case, almost granting the temporary restraining order, whether or not they're paused while the cases are appealed. That could mean people will not get benefits, at least for a temporary period of time.
Okay, Jessica Levinson, thank you.